Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hitting for the Cycle. I am your host, Ben Kruse, alongside my co-host, Ryan Touhey and David Weightman. Folks, this is our second episode of the new year. So for those specifically that got the chance to watch last episode, our first one of the new year, we appreciate you guys for that. And we're very excited to bring you guys another one this week with actually a lot of stuff. Of course, last week we kind of talked about, if you guys did watch, that the market was extremely slow. There wasn't a lot of stuff that kind of went up, happened around during the holidays. Well, this is basically an upside down where we pretty much have a lot of stuff, and hopefully we can get it through the whole entire episode, through about the hour, 10 minutes, whatever it goes through. Before we get into all of our socials, I just want to ask Ryan and David, how they're doing. So I'll go first to David.
Doing good. Just glad that the free agent market picked up a bit. Kind of was way too quiet. So glad to see that it's moving along now as we get closer to spring training.
How about you, Ryan?
I'm doing fine. I'm sick of the cold, and we still got about a month and a half of winter. So I'm just impatiently waiting for this winter season to end. But New York sports has some positive things going on. John Harbaugh, new head coach of the New York Giants, and Yankees finally signed somebody. So we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in this episode.
And my football team is one away from the Super Bowl. Yeah. All right. Here we go with the socials. Hitting for the Cycle. To make sure to subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network on YouTube. Also follow us across social media at HFTC ETB. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me at Ben Kruse 144 right down here on the ticker bar down below. You can follow Ryan at R2E97 right down here on the ticker bar below. And follow David at Weightman Stats. All right. You guys can follow us right here, youtube.com/ETB Network. Also, who to follow us at Empty the Bench Network at ETB Network. Follow us at Hitting for the Cycle at GFTC ETB. And yep, that's where you can follow all of our stuff. So that's that. All right, let's get into the overall episode because, like I said, we have a lot to get into. And our first topic here is a free agency update. So obviously, like we talked about last week, at our first topic, the hot stove basically had not a lot of traction with big time stuff. And basically the day after our recording from last week, my team opened up with a signing, and then pretty much the floodgates kind of happened after that, with some of the big time players that went, and obviously kind of the top players. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about in this episode. So you guys ready?
Ready.
All right. So the first one is I will start with my team. Of course, last week we talked about the Red Sox moved on from Alex Bregman and kind of what the next steps are going to be. So the Red Sox, they decided to go and get a pitcher that I wasn't really expecting them to actually get, but I am very I like the move a lot. I think he's going to be a big-time guy at the top of the rotation with Garrett Crochet and Sonny Gray, and that is that the Red Sox agreed to a 5-year deal, $130 million, with left-hander Ranger Suarez. So obviously David knows him very well. This is a guy that obviously is not going to throw with a lot of velocity, but he's somebody that's going to command in different spots. And I think this is a really good number 2 guy the Red Sox have. Not saying that Sonny Gray isn't capable to be a number 2, but I do think that Ranger Suarez is a really good guy to have in the rotation. He's also a very good guy in the postseason, which I think speaks a lot of volumes that the Red Sox really struggled against your Yankees, Ryan, but it came to basically after Garrett Crochet not having that viable starting guy to go innings. And I think Ranger Suarez is a guy that definitely can help them a lot. And I think with this overall move, it gets the Red Sox, at least the rotation side of things, to one of the top 5 rotations in all of baseball. I think, Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, and Sonny Gray, and then you basically have the back end with guys like Brian Bayo, you got Connolly Early. There's so much depth now in this rotation that the Red Sox have had, and I think that, I give a lot of credit to Craig Breslow. He basically said that we want to really boost our rotation and to limit runs. So getting Ranger Suarez, I guess, was part of that, and a lot of Phillies fans are very sad losing Ranger because of the stuff that he had. So I'll first go to my Yankee guy here, Ryan. Ryan, what do you feel about this move that the Red Sox made getting Ranger Suarez?
I think it's a good move for them, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the Red Sox wanting to improve their rotation. Obviously, the Red Sox offense losing Alex Bregman definitely hurts them. And, after losing Bregman, there weren't a ton of really solid bats available on the free agent market besides Bellinger at the time. We're going to talk about Bellinger later on in the episode, obviously, because he made his decision. So, the Red Sox decided to pivot to the next best option to, improve the team, which was to improve their rotation, which had been a massive problem for them for years. And that was the big reason why, and that was arguably the biggest reason why they missed out on the postseason for the past couple of seasons. So, now you're looking at a rotation, like you said, of Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray, Brian Bayo, Connolly Early. The Red Sox rotation now is lethal, and it's definitely now their strength. I mean, we'll see if their offense can help back it up this season without guys like Bregman and Devers in that lineup. But obviously, Roman Anthony, now you're getting a full season out of him, so that could be beneficial, obviously. But I think it's a good move for the Red Sox, and I think that it can only help them in the long haul.
All right, I'm going to my Philly guy, David, and of course, Ranger extremely well. Ranger actually in his stats last year, their Phillies, David, had a 12-8 with a 3.20 ERA, 151 Ks. Of course, like I said, he is not a guy that is going to strike people out, but he's going to command. And obviously at a 1.22 whip. So there's a lot of good stuff on Ranger, and I'm very happy to bring him in. So give me a little scouting report about Ranger. How do you feel about Ranger as a Philly, and what is some stuff that maybe he could take to Boston?
Let's see. He definitely will throw about low to maybe mid 90s in terms of fastball. Like you said, great command. Nobody was really surprised he left. They offered him a 1-year deal before the free agency thing hits for $22 million. I was like, he's not going to take that. And he didn't. He's a Boris guy, so he got paid. He'll probably fit in, like you said, a 2 in the Boston rotation. It's loaded. He's just really good. The main thing for him is command. I mean, he's not a guy who gets rattled pretty easily. The one thing I guess you guys got to keep an eye on him more is going to be the innings. He's not a guy I would say right now who could throw 200 innings in a season. He kind of, a little bit in the middle of the season, he broke down a little bit last year, but it's a great move for Boston. People were upset, but then the reaction to Philly is he didn't go to the Mets. So that was the case. So, yeah, Boston really has loaded up their starting rotation. And like what Ryan said best, if they get some bats, or maybe it's whoever, like the young guys, Anthony Mayer, etc., they're going to be a tough team in the AL East this year.
Yeah, I mean, I still think our work is not done. Craig Breslow had his press conference with Ranger yesterday, and some of the comments that he made basically were saying that we want to improve our infield defense. Hint, hint, there might be somebody out there, maybe a guy like Nico Horner, that could maybe come in and help with that, but time will tell. But a big-time move for the Red Sox to get Ranger, and I'm very excited for that. All right, some other news that kind of happened, one that kind of really we don't have to go into detail about, but there was a move with the Rockies. The Rockies did make a couple moves. They did bring in Willie Castro on a 2-year deal, so they did do that. So that was that. And then we get into the big of the big. And this was on Thursday night when I was at my basketball internship. So, of course, the big fish had to happen when I was not currently looking at my phone at the point in time. But thank you, Ryan, and some other people was saying stuff in the chat about this guy. And this, of course, was star outfielder Kyle Tucker and the Los Angeles Dodgers were in agreement on a 4-year, $240 million contract. And they can't keep running away with this type of stuff, but Andrew Friedman comes up big. He decides to basically read the market. The Toronto Blue Jays were the team that gave him the most offers. I think it was in terms of years, like a 9-10 year type of offer. And the Mets, I think, were looking at him, but I think more for kind of a short-term higher AAV. So the Dodgers just keep on doing what they have to do. And now they're obviously going to be the best of the best if they weren't already, without Tucker. So I'll just say it was, it's just it's another move for them to be the World Series favorite right now if they can stay healthy. Obviously, health, like me and Ryan talked about health. The Dodgers is kind of their potential backfire of them from last year, of them kind of winning more than 100 games. But yeah, now that you get the best closer on the market, you got the best player on the market. Yeah, that's that. So, Ryan, what do you think? Kyle Tucker, the Dodgers?
What did I say last week?
My heart says that he is going to end up in Toronto, but my brain, for some reason, is saying the Dodgers are going to sneak in and steal him from the Blue Jays. I just have that feeling inside of me. I would not be surprised if it looks like he's going to sign with Toronto, like a fake report breaks that he's heading towards Toronto, and then the next day he officially signs with the Dodgers. I just have that feeling inside of me that the Dodgers are going to snag him from Toronto.
You called it.
I'm Nostradamus.
And the funny part is not only you called it, but the description that you had about that. It's pretty much was like right there, because I think a lot of Blue Jay fans are pretty much kind of anticipating it. Right down the wire, they offered him the most money, but basically Kyle Tucker, and I hate to transfer it over to players, but a Kevin Durant to the Warriors type of move. He basically said, the Blue Jays, I don't know if I can win a championship there, but definitely the Dodgers. I can definitely go there with all the talent, and I don't have to be the guy. I think that's one thing about Tucker is he doesn't want to be in the spotlight, even though he was the top guy and decided to say, listen, we're going to go to the Dodgers, and that's that. So, David, what do you think? This is obviously a move that impacts your NL, and what do you think about Tucker to the Dodgers?
Well, you just said it best. You put him on any other team but the Dodgers with that payroll, with that paycheck he's getting, $60 million a year, he's going to have all the focus on him. He goes to LA. He's maybe the third, fourth, fifth, sixth most important guy on the team.
Well, think about it. You got number one is Shohei.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, Yamamoto.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, probably Freddie. If I had to say Freddie, or Mookie obviously was up there before, but Freddie I think is in terms of guys that just continuously be big. Will Smith, he's a guy that's a massive X factor. He's been there for a while. But you name it. They have guys left and right. There was something out there that I saw that you could put the Dodgers lineup with an all-star lineup kind of next to it, and who would win? Because it's crazy.
The rich get richer, and people can get mad about the Dodgers. Everybody has the same rule book and playbook. The Dodgers they have more cash flow, and they're a lot more aggressive. They're going to be until it's almost like you guys have to fix this. And until then, we're going to continue doing this whether you like it or not. Simple.
Yeah. Tucker is now the Dodgers. And by the way, the great timing of things for MLB, so people don't have to go crazy upset, with saying that they run baseball. They decided to put a little bit of another trade that happened during the Tucker stuff. And this was the bigger one, of course it was, that the Rays and the Reds and the Angels were on a 3-team trade that sent Josh Lowe to the Angels, Gavin Lux and Chris Clark to the Rays, and Brock Burke to the Reds. There's really nothing much about that. Gavin Lux, I guess, is kind of an interesting one. Ryan, Gavin Lux to the Rays. Doesn't that feel like a Yankee and a Red Sox killer already?
Yeah, basically at this point. Most nobodies who go to the Rays usually turn into Yankee or Red Sox killers at some point, and it's infuriating. So,
well, the thing is, he's not really like a no. I feel like Gavin Lux is a nobody, but he definitely probably can get himself back to
and that is true.
Dodgers.
Yeah. Lux was probably on the lower end of notable Dodgers when he was playing during his time there, because the Dodgers were just so loaded. So I guess he was on the low end. But yeah, Tampa, they're always a young team. They're always, kind of going out there and saying with the mentality, let's prove people wrong, prove you can win with our style of play and our low budget. And, there have been some years where they've been able to do that in the regular season, but I don't ever trust them when it comes time for the postseason, because their offense just never shows up in the playoffs. So, we'll see if Lux is able to stand out in Tampa. He probably will. He'll probably be one of the better players on that team for 2026.
Yep. And then, of course, one of the teams that missed out on Kyle Tucker was the New York Mets. And it was actually pretty ironic because before the Tucker news, there was rumblings out there that maybe the Tucker could have went to the Mets, but Steve Cohen put out this tweet saying, "Let me know when you see smoke." And this obviously broke down before the Tucker stuff. Of course, Tucker went to the Dodgers, so of course everybody was using that tweet as kind of like a ha-ha type of thing. But instead, Steve Cohen said, just wait. And the day after that, the Dodgers got Kyle Tucker. The New York Mets decided to go the same route as Tucker with the short-term high AAV. And Bo Bichette, who was one of the other top guys out there in the market, Steve Cohen said, I'm going to take this guy now. And I think at the point in time of my reaction, I said, really? Because obviously I thought he was going to the Phillies all along. David, I'm sorry that basically they did that. I was not expecting the Mets to get him, but here we are. And Ryan, I think you were saying, like, where is he going to play? And I thought to myself, I'm like, so because of course they got Marcus Semien, they got Jorge Polanco, obviously Pete Alonso walked, so he's not there. So my thinking right now is that you probably have Polanco at first base because I think that the Mets are trying to figure him out at first base. At second base, you probably have Semien at second base. And then you got shortstop, you have Lindor, and then at third base, you have Bichette. So I think, Bichette is probably comfortable on that left side anyway. And Lindor is obviously not moving. He's one of the best shortstops in the game. So, I think that the Mets obviously wanted to kind of have to pivot after losing Tucker. And this is a good move for them. And we'll see specifically where he inserts in the lineup. Probably right behind Soto and Lindor, but he's going to be a big part to that team. So, David, what do you think about this move for the Mets and getting Bichette?
They used the Kyle Tucker playbook because the Phillies posted 7 for 200.
Yep.
And then I guess he went back and they said, we'll give you 3 for, 123, whatever. The thing that I find interesting, and this seems like the new trend with free agent signings, is the opt-outs. Because he could be done in 1 year. If you look at it, he asked for an opt-out in year 1, year 2, another opt-out. So that was interesting. In regards to the Mets, with like you said, you look at the thing now. I saw a thing, was it last night, where they're saying Vientos and Polanco are going to play first together, or have a first platoon thing, and then I guess the other one will be DH. So that's interesting. Bichette playing third. He's never done it. I guess it's one of those things. Wait and see how it is. I imagine it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it was a nice move by New York, and it just seems like they just waited for all the other big stuff to happen, and now they've gone in and they're doing their moves for free agency before, this ends, type of season, at the end of the season, excuse me.
And Ryan, I know obviously, in terms of Bichette with the Yankees, there probably wasn't really much of a match there. I mean, if I had to say, but he's going to the other New York team. So what do you think about the move for the Mets and getting Bichette?
I kind of looked at it as a panic move for the Mets, quite honestly. I think they signed Bichette out of concern with that, but the fact that he was negotiating with the Phillies about possibly playing for Philadelphia. And I think the Mets, after losing out on Tucker, I think they really just started to feel the pressure of signing a big name, and they knew that there was a threat of Bichette playing in their division against them. And I don't think they wanted to take that risk, and they decided to go after him and offer him that contract, which is wild, the AAV that he's getting. I mean, both him and Tucker, the money is out of control this year compared to years past. I don't think we've seen something like this in free agency, the AAV and all these opt-outs. I don't think we've seen something like this in an offseason ever, to this extent, that is. But yeah, I mean, Bichette obviously is a contact first guy. I thought that would have really helped out the Phillies if he had been in that lineup. But you put him in the lineup with guys like Soto and Lindor, it definitely improves the Mets lineup. The Mets defense is a big question mark for me going into this season because you got Polanco at first, like Dave mentioned, and you have Bichette playing at third. I mean, Bichette's never really been praised for his fielding. He's always been praised for his bat. So, you're moving him from short to third base. It's a gamble. So we'll see how it happens, how it shapes out. But I mean, the move overall, I just felt that it was more of pressure from the Mets to keep him out of a division rival more than anything else.
Well, I guess you can say that. I do think that they looked at this and said, listen, we don't want him to go into the other part of the division. But I do think with the loss of Alonso, I mean, of course, I don't think Bichette's going to, supply the power that Pete obviously had. That's, of course, a massive ask. But I do think that they needed to have somebody in that middle that had protection behind Soto Lindor. And they really did not have that until Bo came in. And so I think, no offense to guys like Marcus Semien, no offense to guys like Jorge Polanco, but Bo Bichette is a ball player. And I do think he's a really good guy with guys on base. So I think that Bichette is a really good guy that they brought in. All right, so Ryan, the long-awaited wait, my friend, is over with the Yankees in their pursuit to Cody Bellinger. That came down yesterday as, to no surprise, the Yankees and Cody Bellinger agreed to a 5-year, $162.5 million contract. There will be opt-outs after the second and third season. I honestly think that's a good overall contract for you guys, Ryan. I think that's pretty kind of what I was looking at ballpark-wise, this contract. I saw this at work and telling all my Yankee friends at work about this as well, too, because they're like, oh, we got Bellinger. I'm like, yeah, you guys did. It's nobody's surprise. So what do you think about this contract all in all? And, you guys had to do this, and you guys got it done.
Oh, I said it last week.
I do think he's going to come back to the Yankees. I do think he's going to take this deal. I just don't see many other teams, or any teams rather, giving him exactly what he and Boris are asking for. And
I mean, like you said, the contract I think is more than fair to Bellinger, and I think it is. I think it's a contract that the Yankees are comfortable and are able to handle with all the other big contracts that they already have on their plate. Bellinger, obviously, I think Bellinger really is like an ideal guy who you want playing for the Yankees. He's got a beautiful swing. The short porch is practically made for him. He hustles, he plays the game the right way. I'm just curious to see how it's going to play out for him in the outfield. The outfield is pretty clogged right now. You have right now at the major league level, you got Judge obviously in right, Grisham in center, and Bellinger in left. I mean, that's what they mostly ran out there last year. But you still have Dominguez. There's no Goldschmidt this year in all likelihood, so Bellinger's going to get some reps at first base along with Ben Rice. That's probably what they're going to do at first base. I'm wondering if the Yankees are going to trade Spencer Jones before the season starts, or if they're going to trade him at the deadline, depending on how they're doing during the regular season. I'm glad to have Bellinger back, but at the same time, it's still pretty much the same exact team from last year. It is. I really don't. The move, even though, like I said, even though I'm glad to have him back, it really doesn't move the needle that much for me in terms of improving from last year record wise or hitting wise. I'm glad to have him back, but at the end of the day, it's basically the same team.
Yeah, I mean, from what it sounds like, you're like, they have to, at this point in time, they got to do the bare minimum, and they have to get him back, because if they don't get him back, it's like, okay, then there's something.
Well, they're inferior at that point if they don't have him back, but still, it's the same team.
Ryan, Cody put up a really good first year with the Yankees last year with a 272 average, 29 homers, so it was 1 away from 30, 98 RBIs, so it was almost 2 away from RBIs for the 100, and then 813 OPS, so pretty much decent with that. So, obviously, like you said, the short porch, and to have him just in that lineup, right near with Judge is a premium. But, of course, I think with you guys now, Ryan, it's all about the pitching. And, obviously, guys like Cole coming back, it's big, but how is he going to react after, of course, the Tommy John? And then, of course, guys like Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. Rodon's obviously not going to be ready to go for the season. How is he going to be reacting from his injury? And then, of course, Max Fried, of course, him coming another year. You're expecting good things, but, you obviously probably need some insurance. Of course, Ryan Weathers, I think, is a really good piece to have, but I think he's more kind of a bulker, all-inning reliever type of guy. So I do think that there might be some more coming for you guys, but time will tell. David, what do you think about the Cody Bellinger move to the Yankees?
Must move that had to be done by the Yankees. Love the move for him. I've always liked him when he was dealing with the Dodgers. Feel like he fits in a 3-hole spot for that team. In terms of what position-wise, center, left, and a DH, I feel like are the top 3 areas he would play. I guess I like the move, like Ryan said. And then when you said about the whole thing with the pitching, Ben, with the Yankees, does Hal and Brian Cashman during spring training go out and make a move or even free agency, go make a move for another starting pitcher? Because if they're not happy with that, I got to figure the fan base there up in at the Bronx will let them know that they need to get better, especially with how we talk about Boston, how loaded their starting rotation is. So, but no, Cody Bellinger move I love a lot.
Yeah, I think they had to do it. And so of course the Mets got Bo Bichette, but they weren't done. They had two other moves up their sleeve and Steve Cohen. And this move I think is a very low risk, high reward. They decided to go out late on Tuesday night and to sign a guy that I feel like they were connected with for a while. And they ended up getting it done. That was center fielder from the White Sox, Luis Robert, who officially is now out of that overall situation with the Chicago White Sox. And I love this move for the Mets. I think that this is a guy that you look at a couple of years ago, he had almost 20, he had, I think, 30 plus home runs. He's really good when it comes to hard hit rate. And I think that he was just in Chicago for way too long in terms of the stuff that he had. I think that, when you're in a bad situation for so long, you tend to kind of check out. You don't tend to play your best. And I'm not saying that, he's going to turn back the clock all of a sudden, but I do think that it's a lot better than what the Mets had. Of course, they lost Brandon Nimmo already. You of course don't want to really bank on Carson Bench to be your center fielder right away as an overall rookie. You have also guys like Tyron Taylor, who I think that's kind of more of a platoon type of guy. So Roberto is going to be able to come in, play center field. And I think that one thing that David Stearns has kind of emphasized so far is run prevention and some speed, some athleticism. And that is one thing I do think that Luis Robert will bring to the New York Mets. So, David, I'm going to go back to you, of course, being the NL East Division foe. What do you think about this move with the New York Mets making a trade for Luis Robert?
Well, it's interesting. They gave you look what they gave up was Acuna. He wasn't going to play there at all, so that's good for him. Chicago gets a young kid; he can go play every day. In regards to Robert, I just figured this is more just about his glove because I mean he stinks as a hitter. Like last 3 years, I was looking at 264, 224, 223, and every year he struck out well over 100 times. So there's projected of him. They're going to talk about him being an 8-hole hitter with that team, being the everyday center fielder like they were talking about. I just think if it's for the glove, that's great. But if they're looking for him for, like you said, offense, not seeing it. And you said it best, low risk, high reward they're hoping for. So.
How about you, Ryan? What do you think about this move for Luis Robert to the Mets?
I basically agree with everything Dave said. I mean, I've never really been impressed with Luis Robert. Nothing really has stood out to me about the guy. I mean, yeah, he had 38 home runs a couple of years ago, but that's by far his career high. I mean, everything else, like Dave said, his second highest home run total in season is 14, which he's done the past 2 years. He strikes out way too much, and he's had a lot of injuries over the course of his career. So, like you said, high, low risk, high reward, possibly. But I didn't care really when I saw this news break. I just went, all right, whatever.
I don't know. I have to kind of think, at least from the side of things, where I think that the glove is big, and it could be potentially, if I had my comp right at Juan Magares, maybe with a little bit more of some power. But I do think that he wasn't in kind of a tough position for a long period of time, and I do think that there is a little bit more that he can unlock via his bat. I'm not saying obviously it's going to happen overnight and potentially for the season. I do agree with you guys. There is a lot of risk with this. But I do think too is that if he does have a bad year, that the Mets don't obviously have to get up a shit ton of stuff money-wise. So it's a overall type of deal where they got him in, definitely for the glove, and then maybe he'd be able to kind of provide them some offense because he's definitely a lot better than what they had in the center field as is. And they definitely weren't going to pony up for the money for Bellinger. So I do think this is a really good pivot. Obviously, I'm not saying it's better than Bellinger, but I think it's okay. I mean, I'm not obviously saying it's over the moon for them, but it's definitely a move that I think proves them more than now. And then the New York Mets last night, they're not done, and they decided to make a massive move via the pitching front. This is honestly probably the biggest thing that they had to do out of anything during the offseason. And this was a guy that David Stearns has known very, very well from his Milwaukee days, and that is getting Freddie Peralta in a blockbuster trade that's happened last night. So the New York Mets got Freddie Peralta and reliever Tobias Myers. Tobias Myers is somebody to definitely take seriously for sure. He has electric stuff. So he's going to be able to come in and maybe be kind of in the back part of the rotation, or maybe come in and be a guy in the bullpen for the team. And then they did have to bring back quite a bit of a haul. Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat were in part of that package trade for the Mets. So This definitely was a big thing to have for the Mets because they really didn't still didn't have that bona fide ace. You can't really bank on guys like Nolan McLean and Jonathan to be kind of the top guys right away. Freddie Peralta is already an instant. You pretty much kind of already know what you're going to get out of him. And I think that for the Mets, this now kind of gets them up to one of the top teams in the National League East. I wouldn't be shocked if they did go out and get a guy like Fromber. I don't think that the Mets are done. And I know David and I were kind of talking about that off the air. I think that there definitely is some more stuff to this because they have been quite active recently. But if they haven't been, I mean, they had quite a bit of a turnaround of an offseason. And it's obviously a really good segue to our next topic in terms of who wins the offseason. But you lose Pete Alonso, you lose Brandon Nimmo, you lose Edwin Diaz, basically kind of a lot of the core guys. And you know what? The Mets said, listen, we're not going to stop. We're basically going to kind of turn this thing around, get some more athleticism to this team, and to get a top frontline guy that maybe we couldn't get if we kept some of our older guys around. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you, Freddie Peralta to the Mets. I think this is a big move, but there is potentially some cost to this if they can't extend Freddie Peralta. They have to be able to extend this guy to make this trade happen because they did give up quite a bit of haul.
Oh, yeah, I was just about to say that. I mean, Peralta is one of the best pitchers in the league. So, I mean, that automatically improves the Mets starting rotation, which has been very thin over the past couple of years. They've mostly been getting guys who have been past their prime or have been dealing with injuries. They've been getting a lot of ex-Yankees in that starting rotation recently. So, getting a guy in his prime, one of the best pitchers in the league, I mean, it's definitely, exciting. But like you said, they have to extend him. I mean, you don't want to just get only 1 year out of Freddie Peralta, especially after what you gave up. Brandon Sprode was the 81st ranked overall prospect in all of Major League Baseball by Baseball America, so he was highly touted. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a risk worth taking for the Mets. They obviously missed out on the playoffs last year. Their pitching was a major reason why, if not the biggest reason why, because you can't really they couldn't rely on really anybody in that rotation to be steady for them. So bringing a guy like Peralta to be the ace of that rotation, I think is obviously a good move. They do need to add some depth behind him, though, if you ask me. I think it's pretty thin still, even with the addition of Peralta. So, good for the Mets, but it's a risk. We'll see if they're able to extend him. I mean, especially we'll see what happens, obviously, with the impending lockout at season's end. So, with the Mets, it looks like, their pitching staff it's a good chance for them to get back to the top of the NL East, but I still think it's kind of thin overall with depth behind Peralta.
It reminds me of the Garrett Crochet trade with the White Sox, in which Garrett Crochet and the Red Sox had to give up a haul, but he was an ace, and they had to be able to extend him. And we talked about this, Ryan, actually at the point in time of the recording, that it wasn't going to really – it was a big move at the point in time, but you had to get the other part to it, and that's to extend him. And that's what the Red Sox ended up doing. That's what the Mets had to do to make this whole entire thing happen and make it worth it for Freddie Peralta. David, I'll go to you. Thoughts about Freddie Peralta going to Queens?
Really like the deal. I'm just looking at the rotation now that they've mentioned it. I mean, he was going to be one going in. I think he's $8 million this year, so that's where he'll probably ask for, I don't know, like 5 years. It wouldn't surprise if he's up, doubling it or more in terms of what he wants in price wise. I think they have a really good rotation. I'm looking at it. Peralta, McLean, Peterson, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes is a 5. And then everybody forgets that they have Senga, who they give like $100 million to him, but he's had all these arm issues too. So, yeah, I really like New York's rotation part of it. And people keep saying the Phillies are the team to beat in the NL East. I really don't see that. I think New York is actually, for me personally, I think they're better than Philadelphia. And then there's always this sleeper in Atlanta, but I just think New York really has made some late moves here, and they got a nice team in terms of starting pitching, release decent. If their bats can get going and whatever it is, they could possibly pass Philadelphia this year.
Yeah, like I said with the Mets, is they decided to go a different type of road this offseason and decided to get more athletic and to bolster that rotation, in which they haven't done in the last couple of years. So I think this is just it's going to work well. I mean, of course, losing guys like Pete and losing guys like Nimmo and losing guys like Diaz are obviously tough because, of course, they're guys that are homegrown and guys that you wanted to have for the long term. But, eventually you have to kind of move on from some guys like that, if you want to win a championship. Of course, that of course has got to be the backfire thing. So that is that. So with these overall moves, guys, and really quickly, I mean, if you obviously have to look at some other guys that are still out there, Ryan. I mean, a guy like Framber Valdez and a guy like Zach Gallen. Is there any type of guy that, if you're a Yankee fan right now, that you're looking at like, I gotta get this, like a trade or anything like right now? Because me and David talked about it off the air that, now really a lot of the top guys have kind of fallen off. Of course, the guys are, it's rapidly now every single week, the board is coming off, I guess you can say now. But is there any guy that you're looking at like, I would love to have this guy on the Yankees?
I mean, Framber Valdez always pitched well against the Yankees when he was an Astro for the most part. I mean, I would, I guess, lean a little more towards him than Zach Gallen, because Gallen's been kind of inconsistent the past couple of seasons. But the Yankees have just a lot of names on their roster that they're dedicating themselves to, especially that rotation. I mean, they have all 5 spots, set for the season, even without guys like Cole and Rodon, who aren't due back till May. So I don't know if the Yankees really are interested in adding another name to that rotation. They might be interested in, adding to that bullpen, because that could definitely use some improvement. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, if I had to choose between Valdez and Gallen, I'd probably lean a little more towards Valdez, even though some people might think he's a pain to deal with, especially after he intentionally hit his catcher last year. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really driving myself crazy over whether or not the Yankees add another starting pitcher to their rotation, to be honest with you.
All right, what about you, David? Do you feel like you had to maybe get like an arm or something else, kind of maybe say that your offseason maybe is, complete?
You know what? It sounds good. A hitter like Harrison Bader could be nice, like add to the team. Perhaps another arm, especially for me with the Philadelphia, I would like to see that. But when, Dave Dombrowski comes out and just goes, we're good. And then Rob Thompson's just like, yeah, we're pretty much good. And we had a little turnover, but we're fine. It's just it's almost like the Phillies are just like, yeah, we're just going to run this out in 26 and we'll see where the chips fall. I'm not at all like satisfied with Philadelphia, what they've done, but I think it's just they wanted to set a tone. The thing is, like you said, when you were talking about free agents in general, I just saw this thing from John Morosi, and this is a guy still unsigned, Luis Arias. They said in 2025, he led the NL in hits of 181, played 154 games, and walked more than he struck out. I think they said struck out was like less than 20 or 30 times, and he's not signed. It's just there's a guy, he bounces around, but he always hits. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to me that some of these teams won't sign these guys. And I don't know, just find it weird with the whole baseball thing. But yeah, with Philadelphia, they're just set, and it's just like you said, they're just going to roll the dice and hopefully they hit big jackpot. But I don't see it happening this year.
Yeah, I mean, from our Red Sox, I think, if we're going to make anything, it's probably going to be in the infield defense via a trade, whether it's a guy like Brendan Donovan, whether it's a guy like Nico Horner. I think that's really kind of it, and then maybe a bullpen arm, and I think we're all right. But, yeah, in terms of now we're going to go kind of in terms of who won via free agency. Ryan, who do you think won free agency if you obviously had to make an overall team? Because there's not a lot of teams that made maybe outside the Mets and Dodgers obviously got Tucker, but like, what's the overall team that you look at like that's the team that won the whole offseason?
Oh, geez, that's hard to tell, to be honest with you. I mean, because every team, I think, lost something as much as they gained, especially the Mets. I mean, yeah, the Mets got, Peralta, which is very nice, all the guys that we just talked about, but they did lose a good amount of pieces as well. Mm-hmm. I would probably go towards the Dodgers because I think they lost the least in addition to gaining more. I mean, getting guys like Diaz and Tucker definitely makes them even more dangerous, as if they weren't dangerous enough. So Dodgers are my winners.
For me, I'm going to go off the line because I think this team definitely deserves to spend a little bit, and especially with the guy, a big fish that they have in a couple of years, the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think one of my winners this year because they decided to go out and get some guys. I'm not saying their household names, but they decided to go out and they got a guy like Ron O'Hurt to play first base. They didn't spend a lot, but I do think that they made some moves that I think that will impact them. They also got Brandon Lau from the Tampa Bay Rays, somebody that killed us, right? Brandon Lau from the Rays. So I think that the Pirates are a team that I think really helped a lot. And, you know, I don't know how they're going to be this year, but I do think with Paul Skeens coming up in his situation a couple of years from now, I'm going to go with the Pirates. David, is there any team that really stood out to you, or any, you know, team that you feel like, oh, they won the offseason?
Won the offseason. I thought the Cubs getting Bregman. I thought Boston made some good moves.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's kind of like, I don't know if it's good or bad, but they did well and they also lost guys are Toronto. You lose Bichette. You didn't get Tucker. You got Dylan Cease. It's an interesting. They're going to be an interesting team to watch in the AL East this year. I don't know how I feel about Toronto. Like, are they? I mean, you almost could have won the World Series. You just miss out on that, and then you make these moves. So I don't know how I feel. A lot of them also, I just feel like just Roy haven't spent some I think the Nats haven't spent any money. The A's didn't spend any money. The Reds haven't, like you said, it's kind of been kind of like low key things. But I don't know. There's been a couple teams. Dodgers will definitely with Tucker. I would throw in, and he also got Diaz. So I would say LA. But there's some other ones who Boston made some nice moves. So
I'm curious to see what Jarren Duran's situation is. I was actually just reading an article that a team that to watch out for Jarren Duran is the Guardians, especially if the Guardians decide to trade Stephen Kwan, which would not surprise me, but I don't see that happen as of right now.
right.
But those are all the moves, folks, that we broke down. It took almost most of our show, which I'm not surprised about. But we're going to get now into really quickly that the MLB is reportedly pushing for a salary cap. Do you think this is good for the league? I think this is a massive debate that a lot of people have been talking about. I think that, if you're like a Dodger fan or any, big market type of team, they're going to tell you, well, the small market type of teams aren't spending enough, or the big market owners aren't spending enough, and the Dodger fans can say, well, we got Kyle Tucker on a short-term higher AAV, and we weren't the higher team to get him, and we weren't the higher team to get so-and-so, and we decided to sweep him. And so, not a lot of these teams recently, owners-wise, are ponying up like they maybe used to be. I mean, look at the Red Sox. The Red Sox are one of the biggest incumbents of not spending since the Mookie Betts situation, and the Yankees, Brian Cashman this year, obviously they got Bellinger, but maybe there are some potential guys out there that maybe he spends more a couple years ago, compared to what he's done now. And maybe with Dombrowski, David, Dombrowski's been one of the guys that typically loves to pony up and get a lot of guys, as of course he did with the Red Sox. So those are obviously three guys that are owners for big market type of teams. And so Dodger fans basically are saying, it's not all of our fault. Of course, they're going to be a big thing to it. Look at the Houston Astros, with Jim Crane, another owner specifically that will say, we're going to get some guys. Of course, getting into Maya, I think, is a big piece for them. So I understand what they're trying to do. Of course, I think a lot of people at this point in time know a lockout is going to be coming next year. And I think a lot of the talk around next year, I think, is going to be very, very tough for us and for Dave and I. If we have a lockout and there's no baseball to talk about, it's a lot more of like the owners and stuff. But what do you guys think about this? Are you guys in favor of this? Do you guys think this is good for the league, bad for the league? Do you think they're actually going to keep, trying to pursue this or not? Or do you think it's just kind of more of a open discussion than anything? So Ron, I'll go to you first. Do you think that they're actually going to kind of, continue trying to do this? Or do you think it's kind of more of a proposal saying, listen, like, if owners of big market teams aren't going to pony up for a lot of these guys, this was really a reaction, by the way, after the Kyle Tucker move. So I think that the owners kind of looked at this. Jeff Passan also says some comments about saying that apparently owners are feeling like it's not competitive already, even before the season happens, with the Dodgers basically getting everybody, big time guys already. So it's an unfair advantage apparently. So what do you think, Ryan, though, about this overall recency?
I definitely think owners are going to be pushing for a salary cap hard during the offseason negotiations. I definitely think that is, without a shadow of a doubt, that's going to happen. My overall opinion on a salary cap, I mean, ideally, I would like there to be more personally for me, I would like there to be more competitive balance within Major League Baseball. I do think the contracts are just out of control nowadays. I mean, I can't really criticize the Dodgers with what they're doing because they're not doing anything wrong. But if you're going to implement a salary cap, then at least have a salary floor. You got to have one of each, if you ask me. I mean, even as a Yankee fan, and the Yankees obviously were guilty back in the 2000s, signing all these signing these free agents to ridiculous contracts and all that stuff. So we're definitely a part of this. But at the end of the day, it does get tiring seeing these guys go to the same teams over and over again.
Mhm.
I mean, like you said, with Tucker going to the Dodgers, it kind of feels like a Kevin Durant move in baseball. I mean, most players nowadays are just so easily swayed by the Dodgers with the roster that they've constructed, the environments. Players always are, very vocal about how happy they are to be a Dodger.
Diaz, another guy too.
It's now the Dodger organization is now the cream of the crop around Major League Baseball. It's the place players want to go to. It's that highly regarded. You never hear people or players say they never have a no trade clause to not be traded to the Dodgers. Players want that kind of environment. They like the personalities there. The Dodgers, they have an excellent farm system as well. They're doing basically everything right at this point. They're the most highly regarded team now in Major League Baseball, whether people like it or not. It's annoying for fan bases of every other team. But, for me personally, like I said, I'm all for more competitive balance in baseball. I would like to see more big names go to new places. I think it creates more intrigue. But again, you can't just have a salary cap. If you ask me, you got to have at least a salary floor, and there's got to be some kind of compromise here. So that's my whole feeling about it.
Another thing too, before I go to David, is that the Dodgers, they might still look at this and say, listen, we're not even done yet. We want to get Tarek Skubal next year in the next offseason. Because you know what? They know that they have the pieces for him. And they're looking, there's a lot of teams out there that don't even have anything remotely to what the Dodgers had in terms of their prospects. And, Tarek Skubal can look at this and say, listen, this team is on the verge of a three-peat, the first three-peat that we have seen in forever. And I could join that and live in West California with all these all-stars out there. And like you said, Ron, I think a lot of teams are tired of it. But I think a lot of players are saying, listen, that, if I can't win against them, I'll just join them. So there's really nothing we can do. But if there's a salary cap to this, and I also think too for the Tigers, really quick before we get to you, David, a lot of teams have to be able to keep their guys. I don't think right now Tarek Skubal is going back there next year. I don't see it happening because the arbitration that they had, the number that they had was absolutely laughable. I think you guys already saw the number that the arbitration was had Tarek Skubal, Scott Harris. It was not good at all. So that's just kind of an overall example I was just thinking about when you were talking, Ron. David, what do you think about this in terms of the salary cap situation?
Well, first thing, with regards to Skubal, two teams, Dodgers, Mets, are the only ones who can afford them. In terms of like the prospects and the players and the contract, those are the only two I could see that could fit.
I feel like we do have the pieces to make something happen if we really wanted to. We got guys like Connor Early and Peyton Tolley and Franklin Arias. I don't see it happening with us. I would be, over the moon. If you told me, Ryan, that you had a top two of Tarek Skubal and Garrett Crochet in your division, what would you say?
What would I say to that?
Yeah.
Sorry, my heater's going off in the back. It's very annoying. I would probably say words I can't say on air.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the league will let it happen either to have the Cy Young and the runner-up Cy Young in the division. But a man can dream, right? David, what do you think though? You said the Mets and the Dodgers for Skubal if that happens.
That with the Skubal. Now we're getting to the salary cap. I've been thinking about the one thing I think that they're going to do it. So that's where I said the lockout thing could possibly happen. And then next thing you know, we're talking about prospects in 27 in International League and Pacific Coast League Baseball. I wonder if they would, if not as they say the word salary cap, if they would ever go to an NFL model. By that meaning, you sign guys with bonuses, but they're not guaranteed contracts. There's a base that a team has to, in terms of like a salary thing. So it's a $100 million and the ceiling is $200 million. Just throwing numbers here. But then also these teams could cut guys whenever they get to it. So it's like you play for whatever it is, and then they could just go, yeah, we're just going to cut you because you've been hurt or you're not performing well. And then you have something like that and not going with a hard cap type of thing. I think, like I said, they'll slowly announce it before December 1st. And then, because I think the Tucker signing pushed, I would say, more than half of the owners over the top, like that we can't compete in this anymore. This is crazy. So that's where I think it's gonna come with the cap.
Yeah. I think this is definitely going to be something that, it's going to be, the lockout is obviously a big factor. Of course, I remember the day that the MLB, the last lockout that we had, when the MLB owners accepted that we would have some sort of season, I was on a train ride and I screamed on the train ride. You remember, I don't know if you guys have been on the Amtrak and the quiet car, of course, happens. And, everybody says you have to be quiet. Well, I decided to kind of break that rule for a quick sec because I was so relieved. I think, with this type of lockout that's kind of be coming in and pending and stuff, that we're going to be in it for a while. And I think that the salary cap is going to be a massive discussion after what the Dodgers have been doing the last couple of years and the type of advantages that they've been able to have and how be able to have this league be more balanced. And I think that's the biggest thing that we want to have. So that is that. All right. So Ryan, I'm going to transfer now you over to yourself because we talked about Carlos Beltrán and Andruw Jones to the Hall of Fame. I know, Ryan, you were at the Hall of Fame this past summer. I'm pretty sure you were there for the nominees of the last Hall of Famees. If you want to, I guess you can say that. I don't really know if that's the way to say it, but
yes, I was there last year.
And so now, of course, the MLB decided to elect the next kind of wave of people. So I'm going to transfer you over to Ryan here to discuss about that.
So the Hall of Fame induction was revealed on Tuesday, I believe. The announcement was made earlier this week. And we have two new incoming members, obviously, that you saw from that graphic down below. Both center fielders, and two guys who have very close similarities with one another. There was a graphic that MLB Network posted comparing Andruw Jones and Carlos Beltrán. It's kind of scary how alike they are in some aspects. They're only born one day apart, for instance. There was another thing that I'm just trying to find that graphic. You know what? I'm going to be wasting too much time by doing that. But anyways, Carlos Beltrán and Andruw Jones are members of the class of 2026 in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They will be going in along with Jeff Kent over the summer. Carlos Beltrán played from 1998 to 2017, played for the Kansas City Royals, the Houston Astros, the New York Mets, the San Francisco Giants, St. Louis Cardinals, New York Yankees, Texas Rangers, and wrapped up his career with the Astros again. He was a 9-time All-Star, world champion in 2017, his final season, won Rookie of the Year in 1999, 3-time Gold Glove Award winner, 2-time Silver Slugger, and he got in on his 4th ballot at 84.2%. And career 279 hitter, 2,725 career hits, and 435 career home runs. Beltran was basically a 5-tool player. He could do basically everything. He could hit, he could field, he could run. And he was a really, really good baseball player. And, there was some talk about whether or not the whole sign stealing scandal with the Astros would play a role in his decision as to whether or not they were going to allow him to be inducted. But, he got in. So congratulations to Beltran. His best year, he was a terrific postseason performer too. That's what a lot of people remember about him, especially during 2004 with the Astros. And so Beltran is in. And Andruw Jones, the other guy who is in. Jones was definitely one of the best center fielders in baseball during the 2000s. He won 10 straight Gold Glove awards from 1998 to 2007. Played for the Braves, the Dodgers, the Rangers, the White Sox, and the Yankees in Major League Baseball. He also played 2 seasons in Japan. He won the Silver Slugger Award in 2005 and also led the league in home runs in 2005 and RBIs. His number 25 is also retired by the Braves, and he's also a member of the Braves Hall of Fame. So I have no problem with Beltran getting in. Andruw Jones, though, I don't agree with him getting in at all. I don't think that Andruw Jones is a Hall of Famer. I know many people would beg to differ, especially when they tell me that he's one of the best, fielding center fielders of all time. I'm not going to argue with you that he was a terrific fielder, but you look at his overall numbers, especially on the offensive side, they're kind of overrated, to be honest with you. I mean, he was only a career 254 hitter. In my opinion, you got to have at least a career average of like 275 at minimum to be considered for the Hall of Fame. The average is way too low for my liking. He does have 434 career home runs, but he never even reached 2,000 career hits. That's also way too low. And you look at some of the offensive numbers in his career, he had some dreadful seasons with the Dodgers. And I just think his offense is very overrated, if you ask me. And other than, the 10 gold gloves, he had a great year in 2000 and he had a great year in 2005. But other than that, his other offensive seasons were just kind of there for me. I mean, he's got power, but I don't know. I don't agree with it. I think Jones was very good. And I think that Hall of Fame voting now is getting way too lenient. They're allowing more guys to get in based on stats that I think aren't as significant as traditional stats. I think when it comes to the Hall of Fame, you still need to consider traditional stats more than the sabermetrics and analytical stats. And another thing that was kind of bothering me, I mean, Dave, no offense, I'm sure you were a big fan of this guy and still are. Should not even be close to consider to be inducted for the Hall of Fame. That's absolutely ridiculous, the jump that he took this year. My eyes rolled in disgust when I saw that. I'm sorry. No offense at all. But Chase Utley is not a Hall of Famer, if you ask me. So that's my little rant on the whole thing. But regardless, I'm not a writer. And congratulations to Andruw Jones and Carlos Beltrán for getting in.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Ryan. We'll definitely take a look. I know my guy Dustin Pedroia had some votes.
Not a Hall of Famer.
But he's not a Hall of Famer. No, I think he's kind of Chase Utley is getting up there, having a shot.
Absolutely.
I mean, Dustin Pedroia, I think, is a very good player, but I think that he's just not up there for
I can't believe Andy Pettitte is still on this ballot either. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys, like you said, Ryan, that it's now turning more into a bias with a lot of teams and just the voters and everything. So we'll have to see in terms of what they do. But David, do you have anything to say about this?
Oh, do I? Let's go through the list here. Let's see. Well, Jones was the first guy they said since Ralph Kiner. Somebody who had less than 2,000 hits to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
That caught me off guard. I was like, wow, I thought he'd had 2,000. So that has to be the baseline in terms of like the minimum. You got to at least have 2,000 hits. It's like pitching at least with 200 wins to a certain degree. Utley was one of those ones, like he said, like Ryan said. Utley had I guess in his career, he had an area where he was one of the best players in the league. Sure. A little bit before that, and definitely after when he was with the Dodgers. Not the case, but he like another one, less than 2,000 hits, and he went up 20-some points. It's interesting. But meanwhile, Jimmy Rollins is a lot less. He's got like 2,300 hits. Like I would have more. I feel like he has an MVP, may I add. So I feel like he deserves it more than Utley. But like Ryan said, it's who who's the favoritism and stuff like that. Now we can get to Carlos Beltrán. The thing I find interesting about him, with numbers are great. But when they put that report out with the trash can report, where it is with the Steele signing, he was the only one mentioned by name. He was the ringleader of that scandal. Yet he still got in. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but it's interesting how he got in, and he'll be like that whole group. Him, Altuve, I figure Bregman in due time, maybe Carlos Correa too. They'll all get in, and it's just like the asterisk teams they called it, whatever else. So. Yeah, glad they got in and whatever else. Jeff Kent, I had no problem with him. And you look at his numbers, he deserves them more, especially than Andruw Jones does. My God, the numbers he put up as a second baseman hitter, it's amazing. So, and there's other guys who didn't make it too. Dale Murphy's the one I never understand how he's not in the Hall of Fame. Carlos Delgado is another one I don't understand how he doesn't get in. Major League Baseball Hall of Fame definitely needs like a refreshing, as I like to call it, of what you deserve to get in by stats. So
Delgado has more home runs and hits than Andruw Jones.
There you go.
And so does Paul Konerko has more home runs than Andruw Jones as well. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So
yeah. Well, we could talk about this for the next 20 minutes, but unfortunately, we're basically at the top of the hour. And yeah, we got a lot of this show really kind of based off of a lot of stuff. And of course, the Hall of Fame was a great way to end it. But thank you guys for watching another episode of Hitting for the Cycle. Like usual, make sure to follow us on all of our socials. As of course I mentioned, to open up the show. Before I conclude for the show for today, this is Ryan and David. Any leftover final thoughts? Go to you first, Ryan.
Just waiting for the spring to come. Basically it.
I like that, David.
The same thing. I'm dreading this snow, and I'm ready for mid-February when pitchers and catchers report. I'm ready.
For me, hopefully the Red Sox make one more move, and the Patriots are on their way next week to talk about for the Super Bowl. But we'll see about that. All right. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Hitting for the Cycle. We will see you guys next week. Thank you.